Tonight, Iran comes under attack as Israel launches a barrage of airstrikes. Hello, I'm Lydia Feng. This is ABC News. Police investigate a deadly light plane collision in Sydney's southwest. Beyonce takes to the stage as part of Kamala Harris's closing campaign.
I'm not here as a politician. I'm here as a mother.
And a grim warning for swimmers as pollution at Sydney beaches is revealed. The war in the Middle East has reached another dangerous inflection point, with Israel following through on its threat to attack Iran, launching multiple airstrikes. Iran has played down its success, but the fear this latest action could plunge the region into an even broader conflict remains. We begin tonight's coverage with Middle East correspondent Matthew Doran in Jerusalem.
When a promise to attack becomes reality. Explosions heard around the Iranian capital.
Several powerful explosions have been heard near Tehran. The origin of the sound is not known yet.
The Israeli Defense Forces soon confirming it had begun its long-awaited strikes.
The regime in Iran and its proxies in the region have been relentlessly attacking Israel since October 7th on 7 fronts, including direct attacks from Iranian soil. Like every other sovereign country in the world, the State of Israel has the right and the duty to respond.
Israel had pledged to respond to Iran's attack on October 1st when more than 180 missiles were fired at Israel. That strike launched in retaliation for the killing of the leader of Hezbollah, Iran's ally in Lebanon. This latest salvo in an increasingly dangerous cycle of attacks watched closely by the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu from a bunker in Tel Aviv. Their targets, missile manufacturing facilities and surface-to-air missile defences in the Ilam, Khuzestan and Tehran provinces. After 3 waves of strikes, Israel announced its mission was complete and issued another warning.
If the regime in Iran were to make the mistake of beginning a new round of escalation, we will be obligated to respond.
A threat backed by Washington, a senior White House official telling reporters these strikes should end direct exchanges between the two arch-enemies, but warning of consequences should Tehran respond again.
And Middle East correspondent Matthew Doran joins us now from Jerusalem. Matthew, you were on that White House briefing call. What did the US know about these strikes?
Lydia, good evening. The US is saying that it had no involvement in this mission overnight, but a senior Biden administration official has revealed that the Israeli government briefed it on what was going on, and it also has its own intelligence about what was struck and the extent of the damage. It appears that the nature of these strikes, targeting military assets rather than, say, nuclear facilities, shows that Israel has heeded some of the calls from the United States to limit the scope of these strikes. And indeed, the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken was in Israel in the last couple of days or so, reiterating that view. But it must be pointed out that while the US is saying it did not directly get involved in this campaign, it is still a significant donor of military aid to Israel. And in the last couple of days or so, Washington has confirmed that its THAAD anti-missile defence system has been positioned and is operational here in Israel, patching any holes in this country's already very sophisticated air defence systems. So this region is on a knife's edge this evening, and it will really rely on Iran and how and if it responds to these latest strikes to dictate whether or not the situation deteriorates further. Lydia?
Matthew Doran in Jerusalem, thank you. With Israel now trading direct blows with Iran, there are grave questions over what this means for the future of the region. More from Global Affairs editor John Lyons.
Israel is now at war on 7 fronts. The Middle East has never seen this many wars simultaneously. In recent weeks, Israel has bombed Gaza, the West Bank, Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Yemen and now Iran. Israel's attack was in retaliation for Iran's missile attack on Israel 3 weeks ago, which in turn was in retaliation for Israel's attack on the Iranian consulate in Syria. So will Iran now yet again retaliate? Having recently been to both Iran and Israel, it's clear to me that neither country wants a full-scale war. Israel would probably win, but both sides would suffer enormously. Until now, it's been Iran's proxies, Hezbollah, the Houthis and Hamas, engaging Israel. It's now a direct war, Iran against Israel. For Iran, the question is, does it want Tehran to end up looking like Gaza? For Israel, the question is, what is its longer-term strategy? Militarily, Israel sees this as a once-in-a-generation opportunity to destroy Hamas and Hezbollah. But what is Israel's political strategy? How long can Israel keep bombing its neighbours? After the wars, what will its neighbourhood look like? And is Israel prepared to address the conflict that feeds so many of these other conflicts? Its 57-year-old military occupation of the Palestinians.
Police say a horror light plane crash in Sydney's southwest was unsurvivable. 2 small aircraft collided mid-air near Belimbula Park, killing 3 people. Air crash investigators are appealing for witnesses to come forward. Tony Ibrahim reports.
2 light planes fell to the ground after colliding in uncontrolled airspace around midday at Belimbula Park near Oakdale. The 3 occupants of both aircrafts died on impact. The debris was scattered across bushland at 2 separate crash sites. Police say 2 people were in a plane returning from Cessnock to Shell Harbour Airport when the crash occurred. The impact caused its wreckage to burn. The second plane took off from the Oaks airfield. Its debris has been located about 1 kilometre away. There was a large emergency services response with 10 ambulances attending the scene. Emergency services say witnesses saw debris coming from the sky before rushing to the crash site to help.
I take my hat off to those people that have actually run into harm's way to assist those people. Unfortunately, upon reaching that scene, they would have very quickly established there's probably not much that could have been done to save the people on board.
The paramedics are saying that it was a very confronting scene with, patients that they would have liked to assist, but unfortunately there was nothing that they could have done.
Police say they're still trying to find out the ages and genders of the deceased. At this stage, the cause of the crash is unknown. Officers will guard the sites overnight until a team from the Australian Transport Safety Bureau arrives from Canberra tomorrow.
A man has faced court charged with murdering his mother at a caravan park in northern New South Wales. Callan Davidson was charged overnight with domestic violence-related murder after the body of his mother was found inside a tent at Gunnedah on Friday morning. Police arrested Mr Davidson at the scene. The 29-year-old appeared via video link at Parramatta Local Court today and did not apply for bail. The court heard he suffers from mental health issues which need to be assessed while he remains in custody. A Samoan village has put on a show to welcome Prime Minister Anthony Albanese on the final day of a major Commonwealth conference. As Pacific police officers joined forces under a new agreement to strengthen security in the region, the PM was granted a special honour. Foreign Affairs reporter Stephen Jedgetts is in Samoa.
In the Pacific, family ties bring great joy, but hold great responsibility too. The Samoan village of Satapuala adopting Australia for the Commonwealth leaders' meeting. Flush with green and gold and even inflatable kangaroos. The Prime Minister welcomed with open arms. This village bestowing on Anthony Albanese a matai or chiefly title.
Can I thank you from the bottom of my heart for this extraordinarily generous welcome.
The Prime Minister also celebrating a strategic victory. Leaders and foreign ministers from 8 Pacific countries joining Australia and New Zealand to mark the first deployment of a new police group drawn from 11 nations, helping to provide security in times of need and for major events like this one.
In sharing experience and information and in addressing security concerns together.
The Pacific family needs to provide security for the Pacific by the Pacific.
When Anthony Albanese talks about the Pacific family providing its own security, the subtext is clear. Australia's uneasy about China's attempts to strike more policing and security agreements across the region. Initiatives like this are about boosting local capability, but they are also, at least in part, about locking China out as a security player in the region. Pacific solidarity that's also strategic. Stephen Jedgetts, ABC News, Apia.
Polls are now closed in Queensland, with the Labor government seeking a fourth term and the LNP hoping to win office for the first time since the Newman era. The two potential premiers have made their final pitches, but more than half of all registered voters have cast their ballots early.
A quintessential Queensland institution, democracy on display.
Amazing. Can't change your mind.
Yeah. A glowing review of the Premier's 10 months in charge, albeit a biased one.
A privilege, I think, and an honour to watch the person I love, my favourite person in the world, do his best for Queenslanders. It's been wonderful.
Here's to a fresh start for Queensland. David Crisafulli, how are you?
Opposition leader David Crisafulli started his day in the only Gold Coast Labor-held seat of Gavin.
If we get the chance, I'd like the opportunity in 4 years' time to earn your trust.
We'll see. I'll see what you do and really hope that you don't stuff it up if you get in.
The LNP needs a dozen seats to take government for the first time since 2015. Several Brisbane Labor seats, like Cooper here in Ashgrove, are under threat from a strong Greens outfit. The government's challenge is appealing to voters here in the capital while retaining regional seats at risk of flipping to the LNP and Katters.
I think it's time for a change.
I like the fact that there was $1,000 off my electricity bill.
Change needs to happen, and that's why people are going for the smaller parties like One Nation and the Katter Party.
I voted for, to keep Stephen Miles in. Especially after the cyclones up here last year, he was fantastic.
Bundaberg is Queensland's most marginal seat, held by Labor's Tom Smith by just 9 votes.
I think I changed on to the LNP. Maybe they might do something.
Potential kingmaker Robbie Katter from Katter's Australian Party has threatened legal action over signage.
I've messaged Dave Crisafulli to tell him that he knows that's a lie and take it down, give him the option they've chosen not to.
Serious allegations also made in the marginal LNP seat of Currumbin.
There's been intimidation, there's been all sorts of things, and it's something that, I'm probably going to sit down and write about it.
Almost 2 million Queenslanders cast their ballot early. Alex Brewster, ABC News, Brisbane.
As summer approaches, Sydney's beaches are getting busier, but a new report on water quality may make you think twice about where to take a dip.
Don't be fooled by the sparkles. This is amongst Sydney's worst-rated ocean beaches for water quality.
Water is clear now, but there's definitely days where you go to the beach and it's pretty murky.
Bronte Beach was previously graded good, but the state government's latest report card has branded it poor. The classification means the location is susceptible to faecal pollution.
It still looks nice, so it tastes the same.
Deborah Prosser swims most days.
If it's been heavy rain, it's probably going to be polluted here.
She usually checks the water quality online.
Here it's often not good. I won't swim, mostly won't swim, if it's not clear.
The rating covers the last financial year, before hundreds of tar balls mysteriously washed ashore last week. Also downgraded to poor were Shelley Beach at Manly and Boat Harbour at Kurnell, as well as several harbour enclosures, including Murray Rose Pool, formerly called Redleaf Pool.
The main issue is stormwater and how that's managed at council level.
Coogee Beach is a repeat offender, rated poor for the 3rd year in a row. A working group was formed to try to improve the water quality at Coogee. It's come up with a plan to divert stormwater away from the beach. The team is working on a proposal to present to Randwick City Council. Daily water quality data is published on the government's Beach Watch website. Soon, Penrith Beach, also known as Pondi, will get a weekly rating. And with a wet summer forecast, it could come in handy.
Unless there's a sign up saying don't go in, then I might not, but even then, I'll probably still go in.
No amount of pollution stopping some from taking the plunge. Alexander Lewis, ABC News, Sydney.
Power may now be stabilised in far western New South Wales after last week's freak storms caused widespread outages across the region. The state government has announced plans to open support centres in the area to help residents and businesses recover.
Another emergency meeting as the first signs of stable power come to a region besieged by outages.
There are no customers without power in the far west region of New South Wales. Essential Energy and Transgrid are not planning any outages in the next 48 hours, and the main backup generator is operational.
Welcome news for locals after wild storms ripped through the region, knocking over 7 transmission towers and cutting power for around 2 days. The region's 2 backup generators proving unreliable, leaving homes without steady power for the last week and a half.
If we have no blackouts, we can all start to rest a little bit. But until we actually see that over those few days, I can understand the angst in the community.
Again, acknowledge the community of Broken Hill and the surrounding towns for their ongoing patience during this time. We sincerely apologise.
Power crews are continuing to install backup generators, while energy company AGL has integrated a battery into the local network. Network operator Transgrid says it's working around the clock to connect the region back to the main grid by November 6.
The first tower has been erected and all our guy anchors are complete, allowing the rest of the transmission lines to be erected in the coming days.
As an independent tribunal begins to investigate Transgrid over the widespread problems, the state government is setting up support centres to open this week.
It provides face-to-face support and resources for to help residents and businesses recover. That's also where the food support, both vouchers and hampers, will start to be available.
Flickers of hope for residents and businesses who are still being urged to conserve energy in the weeks ahead. Emma Masters, ABC News.
Beyonce was long rumoured to be about to appear with Kamala Harris on the campaign trail. And tonight, it happened. The singer taking the stage in Texas with the Democratic US presidential candidate. Donald Trump was also in the Lone Star State, 11 days out from the election.
Queen Bee back in her home state to lend a helping hand to the Democratic presidential candidate.
I'm not here as a celebrity. I'm not here as a politician. I'm here as a mother.
Texas is seen as a safe Republican state, but Kamala Harris came here because it has a near total ban on abortions, and that's a key campaign issue for the Democrats.
You who are ground zero in the fight for reproductive freedom.
Donald Trump was also in the southern state, trying out his new catchphrase on illegal immigration.
We're like a garbage can. We're like a garbage can. First time I said it was last night.
Make sure y'all get on the boat. Local star power being deployed in Atlanta, Georgia too. A rapper and a former NFL quarterback among those touring a notoriously crime-ridden and run-down housing estate, encouraging people to get out and vote.
If you want change, complaining is not going to work. So instead of complaining, this is your way to be heard.
The goal here is to encourage and ignite our communities, especially the communities that are often forgotten about.
I might, because she told me to.
Can you tell us who you're going to vote for?
It ain't going to be Trump.
2.5 million people in Georgia alone have already voted. This time around, both campaigns are encouraging their supporters to vote early. And one of the reasons is that allows them to get a lot of information on which demographics are casting ballots, allowing them to fine-tune who they still need to reach out to.
Georgian residents over the age of 65 have been particularly enthusiastic about early voting, so that's potentially a positive for the Trump campaign. Potential positive sign for the Harris campaign is women voters have really been taking up early voting as well.
As a race without a clear front-runner nears the finishing line. Barbara Miller, ABC News, Atlanta, Georgia.
Imagine being told you're going blind by someone you've never even met. It's happening in New South Wales, but the good news is it comes with treatment. The government's sending high-tech cameras into rural and remote communities, giving residents access to doctors hundreds of kilometres away.
John Reid from Wagga was born with a misshapen cornea.
He had transplant surgery to restore his vision, but his eye later got so badly infected he was at risk of losing it.
The doctor that I saw in Wagga told me that my eye could literally explode within a 24-hour period because of how bad the infection had got originally, but Sydney got it stable.
He's been treated by some of the country's leading experts at the newly named Gadigal Clinic at the Sydney Eye Hospital. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people are 3 times more likely to have visual impairments than the wider population, but travelling from a regional area to see a specialist can be a major barrier to diagnosis. So the clinic's been trialling these retinal cameras that can be installed in remote communities. They're simple to use and send high-quality images to doctors hundreds of kilometres away.
This has now allowed us to connect with remote locations in order to do real-time assessment of patients who come in with suddenly loss of sight.
Tamworth and Moree are the first recipients, but the Health Minister wants to build a wider network of cameras to combat a chronic shortage of regional specialists across the state.
And what I've said from day one is we need to look at technology to be able to deliver the very best of care in some of the most remote communities in New South Wales.
It could save John a 10-hour round trip for a basic checkup.
It was such a quick process, and having something like that in Wagga would be amazing.
A vision for better care that's coming into focus. Nick Dole, ABC News.
Members of a remote Indigenous community have travelled across the world to bring back dozens of sacred items sold to a German researcher more than 50 years ago. Stone knives, shields and spear throwers are among the pieces that have been returned to representatives of the Walpri community of Yuendumu at a ceremony in Frankfurt. Reporters Anisha Pilarisetti and Michelle Rimmer have this special report from Yuendumu and Frankfurt.
In Australia's Red Centre, the remote town of Yuendumu is 300 kilometres north of Alice Springs. 50 years ago, a German researcher visited the community to capture Walpri culture on film and left with dozens of sacred items and cultural objects.
It don't belong to everyone. It don't belong to anyone from outside of the place, of the community.
Half a century later, Jamie Hampton from the Walpri Project tracked the missing items to Frankfurt.
Hey, is this Bernhoff speaking? Yes, this is Jamie.
The late German researcher's son, who joined him on a visit to Yuendumu, had them in his personal collection.
Bernhoff remembers a lot of those conversations his father had with those elders, and because of that, he'd always, wanted to eventually give these objects back to the community.
That time has now come.
It's been, a long journey for the Walpri Project, and it's good that we kind of bring our ancestors' objects back.
We're doing it for our children, like our elders have done it for our generation.
Now a team from the Walpri community are making the 14,000-kilometre journey to Germany to bring the sacred objects back home.
Half a world away, here at Frankfurt's Senckenberg Museum, the long journey home for these sacred objects begins.
The collection includes stone knives, spear throwers and shields.
It's mixed emotions from being excited, emotional, feeling complete. They're not just objects. To us, they're part of our ancestors, part of our DNA.
The community will also be given around 7 hours of video footage filmed in Yuendumu in the 1970s.
They mean much more to them than they do for me. When they reconnected to the objects, it was no question this had to be done. And I'm happy we did it.
For the Walpri community, these items don't just unlock a piece of history, they offer the opportunity for future generations to connect with their culture.
It's not just with us as men, it's women, it's young people that are now saying, hey, we've got to do more of this.
The objects will be temporarily stored at the South Australian Museum until a cultural centre in Yuendumu is finished. Once there, their journey home will be complete.
Jockey James McDonald has made history, becoming just the third rider to win 3 straight Cox Plates. The favourite heading into the race, Prognosis, ran in second, while Broadsiding claimed third in a photo finish.
Storming to victory.
She's 5 lengths in front.
James McDonald's third Cox Plate, a win for the ages. The 7-year-old guiding McDonald to his 100th Group 1 victory.
She won like winks. Yeah, it's just a phenomenal performance.
When you buy these horses, you hope. Not in your wildest dreams do you think you're going to win a Cox Plate.
A scare at track work earlier in the week cast doubt over the mare's health heading into the race.
The Cox Plate's on every year. If she didn't make it, who cares? She's alive and James is alive. Yeah.
Conditions at Moonee Valley were ideal.
Look at the day. I mean, unbelievable. Could it be better than this?
And a familiar tune signalled the countdown to the race of the day.
Racing in the Cox Plate.
The field of 9 soon had a front runner. Kieran Ma trained Pride of Jenny out in front for much of the 2,040-metre race.
Pride of Jenny is the leader in the Cox Plate.
But with the finishing post in sight, McDonald made his move.
But Via Sistina now pushes the button on the outside and goes up and takes the lead.
Race favourite Prognosis falling behind as the champion mare left all in her wake.
Via Sistina storms away with 150 to go.
A record equalling win by 8 lengths. One for the history books. Erin Marsicovetere, ABC News, Melbourne.
Brock Feeney's tightened the Supercars Championship hunt after finishing third in the first Gold Coast 500 race. The title fight was blown wide open earlier in qualifying when leader Will Brown crashed out as Cam Waters and Richie Stanaway secured pole position. Waters led from start to finish, securing back-to-back wins on the glitter strip and his 4th victory this year. Teammate Thomas Randall finished second, while Feeney picked up valuable points as Will Brown finished 7th.
This weekend, for me, it's just trying to capitalise and try and win races or be on the podium. Unfortunately, we couldn't get on the top step today, but third's great, good points. Still 3 races to go, still a long way to go in this thing.
The Matildas' new era has begun with a 1-1 draw against Switzerland in Zurich. Australia went into the break with the lead after Caitlin Ford was fouled, allowing her to convert from the penalty spot. But the goal was cancelled out by a second-half strike. Interim coach Samani says he wants a stronger defensive effort in the next game with Germany on Tuesday morning. Now let's take a look at the weather. It was a mostly clear day in Sydney today. It reached a top of 21 in the city and 22 in Penrith. Overnight lows were below average throughout the inland plains and south coast. Cooma dipped to a freezing -7. Meanwhile, maximums were below average along the coast, but average inland. On today's satellite, cloud and storm activities associated with the trough can be seen from Western Australia through to South Australia. There's also a thick cloud band moving eastward over Tasmania. On tomorrow's chart, a cold front is forecast across the south of the state. And around the country tomorrow, sunny in Perth and Adelaide, partly cloudy in Melbourne and Canberra, a shower or 2 in Brisbane. For the northeast, partly cloudy with a chance of showers and possible severe storms in the northern rivers, mid-north coast and northern tablelands. Similar conditions in the southeast, partly cloudy, daytime temperatures reaching the low to mid-20s. Grey skies in the west, maximums expected to be in the high 20s and low 30s for most regions. Off the coast, winds from 15 to 25 knots and seas up to 1.5 metres. In Sydney tomorrow, partly cloudy, a top of 26 expected in the city and Parramatta. The sun will rise at 5:59. And further ahead, mostly sunny on Monday with a chance of a storm in the afternoon and evening, a top of 26 in the city and 31 in the west. Cloudy and cooler conditions on Tuesday, then dry and mostly sunny on Wednesday. Showers will return for the rest of the week. And that's all from ABC News. Enjoy the rest of your evening.